Well, how about some Doctor Who news? Sure, why not? Well, here's a little tidbit of a story that I've seen others do videos about, and especially Doomcock, because, hey, this might be a hopeful sign. And unlike other franchises that have been rather suicidal over the years, Doctor Who is one that seemingly had the however unlikely elements fall into place. So, it'd been rumored that, hey, we think we're hearing Russell T Davies might come back, and after him saying he would never would and all that sort of stuff seemed unlikely. And then, the only way to save Doctor Who would be to outsource it in some manner. And then, lo and behold, that's kind of where you are. First, Russell T Davies comes back. He sells his Bad Wolf company to Sony Pictures. Then there's this deal with Disney, which actually is a big negative, considering where Disney is these days. You might as well have kept it at the BBC, because, but then again, they're hurting for money, so, maybe you will just do a Doctor Who show and forget about all the crap. Well, this little tidbit here might be a little glimmer of hope. I remain dubious, but, I haven't seen what he's done, so until I do, I'll know one way or the other. But anyway, so I talk about this interview that Russell T Davies gave, and I think he was talking about some other shows he's currently working on or whatever, but then Doctor Who came along. But he starts talking about people that work at television. He says, I do a lot of mentoring, and there are voices wanting to be heard of any gender. There's only two. Or ethnicity, who consider themselves invisible, he said. They hate the media that ignores them, and they're trapped into wanting a job in that medium purely to increase representation. So then he adds, I read their scripts, and they're rubbish. He's exactly right. They don't actually love television, so they don't know how to write for it. So, yeah, he's pretty much identifying the problem here. You seek a lot of praising for representation, and he's acknowledging some sympathy here about, they don't feel represented and all this sort of stuff. But that's it. That's the whole point. That's the obsession, which doesn't result in great television. And if that becomes the focus and everything, then actual character development, plot, and what have you goes by the wayside, if not completely evaporate. And such was the case. Doctor Who continuously got woke and more woke and more woke upon wokeness, to the point where they turned the Doctor into a woman. And then that wasn't enough, and you end up with timeless child. But for the most part of the Jodie Whittaker episodes, they were just bland, lackluster, lazy, slap job crap. They weren't even necessarily woke at all. They just didn't know what they were doing. Because in a lot of, in this era, forget it. But in a lot of ways, I suppose you could have made a female Doctor work. It's a little late. It's a pretty old franchise, but not like that. Just sheer laziness and that sort of thing. So he's always going to be right about that, and that's the thing. Do I think he can do better stories for Doctor Who than the likes of Chibnall? Well, hands down. That's a done deal. Although, a lot of people are at the point of worshiping the guy over Doctor Who. I didn't like everything he did. I didn't think it was all that great. But looking back over the three showrunners they've had, he's easily the best. So that's just the way it is. And a point like this is that, yeah, the quality just wasn't there. So, that's fine and well. It's just the damage done is something, if he doesn't deal with it, or probably more likely will just be a kind of ignoring things that Chibnall did, and we pretty much know what that is. And that's going to continue to be a problem, I think. But he's pushing this whole thing and all kinds of pizzazz, and oh boy, it's going to be a Doctor Who universe with all these other shows, and maybe a unit show, maybe Torchwood comes back, or they'll come up with something else that involves, certain characters and what they, he did that originally, and that's basically spinoffs, and they tried to continue that. They did that terrible Class show, which again was all about representation. But a unit show probably would be one that they could do, which I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that in the outset, but I don't know, in a roundabout way, I guess Torchwood kind of was something like that. But anyway, so is that what this is? Is that it's the flat out acknowledgement that the scripts weren't that great? He's not being very specific. He's just talking about the people that are obsessed with that, the representation aspect of it, to the detriment of scripts. And so that's certainly true. But so it's kind of like the thing I was saying about Star Wars in such bad shape, but the best you can hope for is, hey, you'll get some good Mandalorian shows, and that's about it. The rest of it's going to be crap. And so you'll get a couple of okay Doctor Who adventures here, but ultimately it's a damaged property, and if you don't correct it, it remains damaged. So you've had some good things like Mandalorian, and I like the Andor show. Most people didn't see it. Gee, I wonder why. Because the Star Wars brand overall is severely damaged. And I think Doctor Who is in the same boat here. So just having Davies come in, and he can write a better Dalek episode than previous writers, or he knows people who can, and that sort of thing. Fine, but that's not enough to salvage it. And to achieve the goals of these ambitions, you got to fix the broken toy. There's no avoiding that. So anyway, it's interesting that he basically said the truth here. But there'll probably be some walk back or let me clarify. But there's really no clarifying that. It's like, the scripts were rubbish. But anyway, it's interesting. But is this, there you go, Doctor Who is saved? No, the jury is still out on that. So we'll have to see what the end product is, of course, as you should with all these things. But I saw another article where he was praising, I like what they've done with Star Trek. Whoa. Whoa. And I mean, what he meant was the aspect that's expanded into spin-offs and all that. So this is his idea for Doctor Who, and they were talking about comparing it to Marvel and that sort of thing. So, I'll give him somewhat of a pass there, but don't copy anything from Star Trek, because there again, same problem. All they ever concerned about was representation and nothing else. So you pretty much got shows that were on par with Chibnall's Doctor Who. Bland, lackluster, stupid shows. Anyway, there you go. Doctor Who.